What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a quick review of this guy. Let's do it. What's up, guys? Welcome back here. We're going to be doing a quick pros and cons review of this guy, the Civivi Copper Dogma. Now, this is a really cool model, and there's actually lots of variants of this guy still available. So, obviously, we've got this one, the copper variant, and there's a satin one as well. This is going to run about $70. They also have the standard, which has your G10 and your satin blade. This is like a black stonewash sort of finish. You can see it's been well used. Though the standard with G10 is about $50. And then your most special models are going to have Damascus. They have a Damascus with copper and then a Damascus with like a G10 carbon fiber composite. And those are going to run $80 to $85. So overall, still very affordable for this great knife. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons here. This is my dad's knife. I bought it for him about, just over a year ago. And so he's been using it and carrying it a bunch. You can see that. So we're just going to jump right into the pros and cons. I'm going to do my best to remember to explicitly say which things are specific to this variant in particular and which are true for the model as a whole. So just keep that in mind. So the first pro that I'm going to talk about is the ergonomics. And I think this is true for all of these models. If you'll notice with my hands in particular, the clip fits right in between that space, in between my middle and my ring finger. And it just sort of cups the crest of my finger there, and I can get a full, nice, wrapped around grip there. And there's no hot spots. The curve on the handle works really well with my hand. It just kind of feels natural. And then there's also this choke-up position that you get on a lot of Civivis with that finger choil. So the ergos are great. I also, in particular for this model, really do like these copper scales. I think they're getting a really cool worn look now after a year. You can see some of it is some of the black here is kind of wearing away. And it kind of gets that nice like rubbed in patina look. And I think that's why a lot of people like copper, because it does wear in really nicely. And it gets that, sort of like, it doesn't stay brand new looking forever, and every copper scale wears a little bit differently, so it gives it a very unique look. So that's really cool. In addition, this blade is very nice and thin, and so it's a very good slicer. And on top of that thin blade, they've got a hollow grind on here. I don't know if you can tell from the camera. This is going to, again, be true for all of the models. They have the very similar blade shape. All of them are the same, except for they have a couple that have a fuller, I think it's called, instead of this hole here. But they're all going to have the same, cutting profile, which is a really good thing. Civivi ball bearing action, obviously phenomenal. It's a pretty light blade for how thick or for how heavy the handle is, and we're going to talk about that later. But that thing flies right out. And the other cool thing, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this on camera, but it is, oh, there we go. It is middle finger flickable. It's not terribly easy to do, and it took me a lot of practice to get it in the right spot. You really got to have your finger right at the bottom of that hole to get the maximum torque. The farthest away from the pivot that you are, the more torque you're going to get on that. So if you try to do it up here, well, I'm contradicting myself. Okay, well, there you go. You can middle finger flick this with some practice, which is pretty cool. And then you can also use the thumb, just the classic thumb opening. So I'm a big fan of any knife that has at least two or more than two ways to open it. I think that's a really cool feature. So yeah, the blade opening, and again, that's going to be the same for all the models. I don't know about the one with the fuller instead of the hole. I would assume you can still get your nail under there, but again, I'm not sure. See, now I'm having trouble. So there we go. Next up, this clip is really good. Nice deep carry clip. It goes almost all the way. It's very ultra deep carry. You can see this guy's got some nice scratches on it. Yeah, my dad does not mess around. Liner lock. Yeah, it's a really cool looking knife too. They kind of draw on that sort of classic design element of having the bolster here, although it's still part of the same scale. It's just like kind of painted on with that black finish. But it ends up looking really cool, and the black wash blade matches well with the kind of rubbed finish on the handles that they start to get after a while of using it. So those are basically the pros. The ergos are really good. The copper scales look really nice, and they feel good too. They kind of give you like a penny smell in your hands, which I guess is a pro or con depending on what you feel about pennies. The blade is nice and thin and slicey with that good hollow grind. And also D2 steel on this guy, which is fine, and I like that they coated it to help with the corrosion resistance a little bit, but it's relatively tough, decent edge retention, for a budget steel. It works pretty well on here. I sharpened this guy for my dad not too long ago, and it's pretty wicked sharp, but it's a good, for this price point and for this type of knife, it's pretty good. And then good clip. What else did I say? Oh, and then multiple ways of opening it. So that's great. Few cons here. The first thing, well, I'm going to say this. So this is a heavy knife. Copper is a very heavy scale material. So look at the balance point is pretty far back. It doesn't feel very well balanced because it's got such a nice thin blade and then a very heavy handle because of this copper. And of course, this is not a characteristic to this model. It's a characteristic to this variant in particular. So I'm sure the standard Dogma is much, more well balanced than this one is. It does. So this is, you can decide if it's a con or a pro for you. In some ways, I like it because it sits really well in your hand. Thing's never going to fly out. But you do have to be a little bit more deliberate in what you wear when you carry this and like when you carry this, because it definitely does feel heavy in the pocket. I have my my Sabenza large that I carry around, and it, this is not by any means a lightweight knife, and the Dogma is still heavier by a considerable amount. So, yeah, you can decide. In some situations, I think that's a con. In some situations, maybe it can be a pro, but that's just something to think about for this in particular. And that's a characteristic of copper that you're going to get pretty much with any copper knife. Like the new copper PM2 is like almost 8 ounces. That's so heavy. This one's not quite that. This is probably, I want to say, between 4 and 5. Don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure. Other non-weight related cons. There's no jimping here. And for me, that's becoming more and more a very important thing. It's very smooth on the back. And so I don't feel like I have any really good, particular place to put my thumb. It definitely, naturally goes here, but I don't know. It's a personal thing probably, but I want a little bit of texture up here. So, and I forgot to do the size comparison. I'm going to do it at the end. One of the things I absolutely love about the Para 3, not only do they have this jimping, but they have a nice thumb ramp, so your hand just locks in. And I don't feel that with this knife. I feel locked in on this side, but I don't feel locked in on the top. It's just kind of loosey-goosey up here, and that's not ideal for me. So, and that's something that all of these models are going to have, all these variants are going to have, because this is a model feature. Not too much else. In addition to that, the tip is a little dainty because they've got this clip point sort of deal going on here, and so it's losing material as it comes to the edge. And I don't know if you can see, but it's a little bent here, so I don't know what he did, but my dad must have been doing something he probably shouldn't have with this knife. Thank God it didn't break, and that's D2 is not the hardest steel in the world. So, but it is a pretty dainty tip, especially if you compare it to, well, obviously the 940 is not a dainty tip. That's the exact opposite. And then even the Para 3 keeps a good amount of material as you go towards the edge. So that's something that obviously it's going to make it a little bit better for piercing. It's a really good, nice, thin, slicey knife, but that's just something to keep in mind. It's not really going to be a, heavy, abusive, a knife that can stand up to heavy abuse. Although, D2, like I said, relatively tough. So there it is right there. Civivi does that awesome job with the nice small lettering. But yeah, otherwise, you've got a great Civivi here, and they're a great company, really good quality for low prices, and they've got lots of great designs, and this is one of them. I think the look is just great. So, let's just round this out here with a quick size comparison, because I neglected to do it at the beginning. If you've stuck around this long, your Benchmade 940. So here we go, very similar in both blade size and handle size. The ratios are very similar. It's a good size. I mean, 3.5 inches is pretty much my sweet spot. Here's next to your pair of 3, so actually pretty similar on the handle, just a little, longer on the blade. Not quite as tall. In fact, it's pretty similar to the 940, although it has a slightly taller blade. And it is a considerably better slicer at that. And then, lastly, the only Civivi in my personal collection, the Odium, which is obviously a very tiny little guy. Pretty similar on the, see, I like this one also because you can open it 3 different ways. So that's cool, But, yeah, okay, that's it for this video. Hopefully you got some good information on this knife. Definitely check it out. These are all still widely available, and definitely good price on these guys. So, yeah, thanks for checking this out, and stay tuned for more videos. All right, cheers.